Good evening, everybody. Welcome to episode 15 of Words on Whiskey, brought to you by Irish Whiskey Magazine. Delighted that you can join us. And if you are enjoying the shows, they're all available on your favorite podcast player and also on our website, irishwhiskeymagazine.com. And look forward to getting your feedback. And if you have any questions here for our next guest, please post them in the chat, or if you have any questions in general, we're delighted to answer them during the show. So let's start off with this week's news. So there's a little bit happening, maybe not as much as normal, but let's kick off. And some good news finally for the pubs. So the pubs are set to open on the 21st of September with restrictions in terms of capacity and social distancing. But all going well and no escalation in the virus, then we're set to open the bars on the 21st of September. So finally, some good news there for everybody. In terms of new releases, then, we have a new release from Jameson. The Crested lineup is getting a Caskmates treatment, if you like. So they've partnered with 8 Degrees Brewing, who have just celebrated their 8 years in operation. And they had previously done a release of a beer finished in a Jameson cask. And now the favor has been returned, if you like. And there is the Jameson Crested finished in Black Bull metric stout barrels. So that's limited to 10,000 bottles and retailing at €45. And that's available from now. So that'll be an interesting one to try. That Crested 10, a particular favorite of Irish whiskey drinkers, I would say. And then Celtic Whiskey Shop have released a whiskey called the Celt. It's part of their single cask offerings, and that is available now for €75. The good news is that is a bottle of 46%, €75, but €5 of that euro go to Down syndrome charity. So that's a great cause, and delighted to see that happen. It's a no age statement and finished in a sherry cask, and they're the only details that they've made available. So they want this to be drunk and enjoyed, and the money going to charity as well is a great cause. So that's the Celt there. And then also we have the second bottling in the Renaissance series from Teeling Whiskey. This is an 18-year-old single malt finished in ex-Australian Shiraz casks, limited to 9,000 bottles and bottled at 46% ABV. And as you can see just here behind me, we do have a bottle that we are running a competition for at the moment. And if you'd like to enter that competition, just click on the link on our website, and we have this beautiful bottle to be given away. Thanks to Teeling for providing that. So that's something hopefully to look forward to and enjoy, and good luck with your entry on that. So beyond that, no other news at the moment. We are aware of a few new releases that are coming out in the next while, so we'll keep you posted. If you want to keep up to date with the news, it's just irishwhiskeynews.com or irishwhiskymagazine.com/news. So let's get on with our guest here. I'm delighted to have a friend and a great ambassador for Irish whiskey, and he's doing great things in the Irish whiskey circles. So welcome to Nick Ryan. So let's just bring him in there. Nick, hi, how are you?
Yes,
welcome. It's been a while, but social distancing and all the rest. Yeah. How are you managing now with the COVID restrictions? How's that affecting you?
It's like everybody. I think we've all had to adapt, and it's been hard, being honest. But like, as in, not being able to see friends and family, and social distancing is something that I'm a very social person, as you know.
Yes.
From a big family, so it's I've 5 sisters and 1 brother, and so many nieces and nephews. So it's very hard not to see them all. And amongst all that, having my own son now, who's 9 months old, and not being able for him to go see his grandparents has been tough. But apart from that, it's been busy. It's been very productive as well. But like anything, I had to adapt and had to change.
Yeah. So you wear two hats in a sense, although they are so tightly interlinked.
Yeah.
You wear the hat with the spirits. Irish Whiskey and Spirits Institute
Yes.
is one thing that you run, and then you are also producing a whiskey, Thomond Gate whiskey, and reviving whiskey in Limerick. But we'll take you right back. Obviously, you're a Limerick man,
Yes.
born and bred, and you grew up in Limerick. And tell us a little bit about your background and how you got involved in whiskey.
Well, I'm from a kind of a family that's pretty much teetotal, so I'm a bit of the black sheep of the family. But we grew up in the hospitality industry, and my father operated and owned bars in the past in Limerick. And when I was younger, worked behind the bar, jobs and with customers, and obviously you have people coming in and they're always asking about what's local, and there wasn't very little that you could offer then that was local. Actually nothing was local, to be honest. But there was always in the bars, there's always the remnants of Limerick's last kind of industrial era, which kind of showed from tobacco factories, biscuit factories, to beer and distilleries. And Limerick, when I was growing up, and Limerick has done so well over the last number of years, but it was a very different city, and you could see the remnants of it. But yeah, growing up in the industry was great, but it was much later that I joined the game myself.
Yeah, I mean, Limerick really has rejuvenated itself over the last few years, attracting big international business and become a bit of a tech hub as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know of a lot of people leaving Dublin to go and relocate there and make their future there. So that's great. Yeah, but you went the other way. You went off to the tech sector in London for a while.
Yes.
A bit like myself. I did that for a stint as well. So, what did you end up doing there? And
yeah, I had my brother and my sister there, and they kind of beckoned me over and saying, "Hey, come over here. It's great fun." And I was freshly out of university at the time, and I'd done a bit of ventures, or one or two at the time, and it was time to kind of go over there and cut my teeth into something new, and got deep involved with the tech scene, and worked for a number of large enterprises and worked my way up. But like anybody, you ran the rat race and got sick of it, and worked for somebody else and built their vision and their goals. But what really was my passion was the spirits. But it was a great place to be because you have this huge options of knowledge there. It's a crossroads of the world, and it was a very, very good place to be able to build my network in the spirits industry, as well as to, I could walk down the road and easily pass a number of breweries and distilleries before even getting to work. So you couldn't do that anywhere else in Ireland, at least.
Yeah.
So, but
have you always had the desire to run your own business and be your own boss?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm from a family who very much entrepreneurial, and it was kind of, why do you want to do that? It was almost kind of encouraged probably to go and do a business rather than get a job, kind of thing, when I was young. And but obviously you have to go and work for somebody else to get your experience and learn from somebody else's mistakes and so on. But very entrepreneurial background, I could say. Luckily to be able to ask a brother or sister, what their opinion is. So absolutely.
And your better half, your good wife Natalie, she's running her own business as well. So she's in the sustainable clothing line, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. So that was it's a funny one because we were at an equestrian fair, and I was looking at these gilets and I was going, what are these things? Why are everybody wearing them? And why are they all the same color? And she goes, that's a good question. And then she decided to set up a business. So I think it rubs off, or it's part of being a part of the family, I guess.
Yeah, excellent. And so you've welcomed a baby boy, Hector, into the families. I remember the days leading up here, there were a few delays, but you got there in the end and all's well. So you've welcomed Hector into your life as well. So you have your hands full.
Definitely. And I'm very lucky to have my wife, because I couldn't be doing all of this without her. And she's doing a great job. So absolutely.
That's fantastic. Well, hopefully both the businesses will go well. I mean, your big business, Nick, now is the WSET, no? I think we've lost Nick there now. Hopefully he'll come back. Let's try bringing him back in due to the technology. No, we've lost Nick for the moment. Okay. Well, we'll wait and see if we can see any movement from him. I know he's in a difficult location there at the moment, so I think...
Back.
Oh, you're back.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, you're in a remote office, I know, so yeah, not the easiest. Yeah,
No.
look, obviously you started this WSET approved training program. How did that come about? Do you want to tell us how that came about and how you got interested in whiskey in the first place, actually?
Yeah, well, it came about really because when I was looking at, well, first of all, having a passion and interest in spirits, I wanted to hone my own knowledge, and I wanted to be able to understand how to do things correctly. And I went out and I sought out what's the best courses to do, and spoke to people in the industry, and they all recommended to do the WSET courses. And naturally, I enrolled, and luckily being at London at the time, I was able to go and do the classes easily enough, and got my qualifications. And then I realized, why isn't this available in Ireland? Why aren't this knowledge easily accessible to everybody? So
Yeah.
I thought that the other side of it was that not enough of Irish spirits were being highlighted on it as well. They were very much a core around the world spirits, but there wasn't Irish vodkas, there wasn't Irish gin, and not that many Irish whiskies on it really. It was more the Scotch and the American whiskies. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to do things differently. I'm going to set up a school, and I'm going to focus on education and be able to provide the knowledge that I've acquired, and also apply my kind of twist to it and the way I teach. You just try to make it as fun as possible, and not as not too, I guess, classroom vibe. Just kind of spirits is fun. Spirits should be. So try to make it as interesting as possible, but some really, really good, fantastic Irish spirits highlighted in the course. So
So there are 3 levels within the wine spirits course. So there's WSET 1, 2, and 3. What's their overall philosophy, and what kind of marketplace does it, and what kind of requirements does it fulfill? Is it good for the general bartender? Is it good for somebody getting into distilling? Who is it for?
Well, each level, I guess, suits different people. It's probably the best way to answer it. You have people who just have a curiosity, have a passion, and they want to have a foundation to build on. And level 1 would be very good for that. And then you have those who have a good depth of knowledge and want to dive that a little bit deeper, and that would be level 2. And then you have level 3, which feels like you're back in university, or back going to do your leaving cert and studying away. I think I showed you earlier, I don't know where to place them, but I have these were part of all my notes for level 3 when I was doing it, and a huge amount of knowledge to assimilate and take in. But the depth of knowledge that you get from doing courses like this is fantastic, and also putting frameworks and structures in place that are internationally recognized, so that way when you are talking to somebody at the other side of the world, they understand what you're meaning in the context of how you're describing that spirit, and it's not this I guess very broad approach.
Well, there you can see some of the notes and some of the material. I mean, what I did the WSET 2 with you, and I really enjoyed it. And I enjoyed it particularly because it's not all theory. And then there were spirits that you get to try that you wouldn't normally get to try. And also ones that might not be on the most popular list of spirits even. So, there were the grappas, there were the Mersals, there was everything basically there. And for me, it helped put in place where whiskey sits in the spirits world, and the relationship between whiskey and other spirits, the similarities, the differences. And I have to say, I really highly recommend it. Just even if you're not going to take the exam, from the point of view of widening your scope and being able to speak the universal language, because that's always something challenging, isn't it, for somebody to describe something. So how did you see that the Irish market differed from the UK market in terms of placing those different spirits? Is there a difference?
I think Ireland's a smaller nation for sure. And, if you think about, I always used to think about the nighttime population of London was different versus the daytime population. And that difference was probably the population of Ireland,
Right.
which, is kind of things in very different contexts for sure, of how small we are. But I think we punch way above our weight, for a small nation, we have some fantastic spirits coming out of here. And, we have quality over quantity, I would say, more than anything as well. And there's some really interesting stuff being done. And that's what I think is exciting about it. But, that's what's really cool. There's so much happening here.
Yeah. I think what I picked up most on was being able to speak, a language that was uniform across all the spirits, and being able to place Irish whiskey, but even other spirits as well, and able to describe them. I think I got to try 50 or 60 different spirits during the course. And I have to admit, I've been putting off the exam now for a while, but it's something I do plan on doing.
You'll do great. Don't worry.
We'll see. There's enough. Well, I learned a lot about whiskey as well. And we got to try different whiskeys from around the world, and the bourbons and the scotches and so forth. So that was very interesting. So one of the things that did impress me is how well that course translated to being run on Zoom or on a remote platform.
Yeah, I think that was a surprise myself, as in it was a big risk, trying to take what I try to make a very hands-on, tactile experience, where you're passing things around and you're smelling them and you're feeling them. But obviously it took a huge amount of effort and labor to create that experience online. And, these little bottles that were decanted and sent out, and, you get packs of, this little packed fruit spirit of flavored spirits here.
Yeah.
And it looks quite funky, but, these are all from, sherry herring to Cointreau to absinthe to a rose gin. So so many things that are there, but it's a bit like a goodie pack in the post, and you get it. And, it was great. I think the great thing as well by doing it online, I think we were able to split up. I think you were on the evening class, wasn't it, Serge?
That's right. Yeah, the evening one suited me perfectly, because during the day I was beavering away, and I think it suits a lot of people. Actually, I think there is a niche definitely for outside normal hours to be able to do a course, and 3 evenings, a couple of hours, and it was for me. I really benefited. I really enjoyed it.
It was really fun.
And how much, how much of that sort of thing you use later on, it's hard to quantify, but certainly an enjoyable course. What's the pricing on the courses, Nick? Just so that people, if they have inquiries.
Yeah, sure. So level 1 would be €195, and then level 2 is 450. Level 3 is not available yet in Ireland, but I'm working on that, and something that will be brought here. But they pretty much increase in the same kind of ratio. So up near probably the 900 kind of mark.
Or is it? Okay.
It's a full-on. It's 115 hours of independent study, which is quite a lot. And I believe, it took so much effort, but also it was so much fun as well. And your mind opens when you do the higher levels of 2 to 3, for sure. But the one thing about doing it at home, I think, was the kind of obvious factor, but also the factor probably we don't really look at is when you're doing a class like this. Mainly we're using spittoons and we're spitting out the spirits, and there might be something, oh god, I really like that, and if you're you want to enjoy it, but you're driving home, so you can't, so you have to use a spittoon. So or you don't want to even you want to stay up. You have to stay up in a different part of the country, because mainly we run up to the Teelings distillery, so you'd be having to stay in Dublin if you're from down the country, things like that. It just made it so much easier for people. And we had people from Brooklyn, from Kings County Distillery, join us as well, which was great to have them join and bring their knowledge of American whiskey and bourbon to us as well. And we have this environment where you have different people with different expertise. And as I always highlight, I would never really class myself as an expert, because there's too much to know about the world. But the great thing is being the facilitator or kind of the moderator in the room, and kind of encouraging everybody to exchange that knowledge. and you have people from mixologists to brand ambassadors to just people who love spirits. So yeah, it's great fun.
Yeah, I see Juan here has joined us from Argentina. He's on at IWA Argentina, I think is his handle on, and
Okay.
He's really doing a great job on championing Irish whiskey in Argentina. Of course, there's a big Irish community over there in Argentina, and they have some great spirits. Is the course available there for them?
It comes down to their local laws on import of spirits, but I'm sure with couriers it could be possible. But again, it all comes down to the local law, whether it's allowed in or not. So I imagine it's for them to do the course. The exam now as well can be done remotely, and obviously they'll have to see if they're allowed to do the exam remotely from Argentina. But I don't see that being an issue. But obviously there's got to be some checks done before they enroll, just to make sure they can.
I mean, you must have been one of the first to offer this course remotely, were you, Nick? Certainly in Ireland you were.
Well, I believe I was one of the first, from the WSET to do it. And it was something that I had been planning previously to do anyway. So the seeds were there, because naturally speaking, when you look at, I'm down in Limerick, and, you travel up to people who are down in Kerry, you have people up in Donegal. Ireland, it's small, but, people, the industry is so spread out, and getting time to go and do a course, it's not necessarily easy for people to take 2 days, 3 days off to do a course. So
absolutely. And I was kind of relieved that I didn't have to drive home after doing some of those evening courses. So there is that side benefit, as well as that, it was great to talk to other people. And some of them are really focused on whiskey. Some of them weren't. I know that obviously the majority of the people were whiskey people. But I have one comment in here. So we were asking people to have questions and post in any comments. And they posted in this comment, I know who it is, and the person listening will know who it is, but they asked me to remain anonymous. And he says, what Nick Ryan has done for me is something I'll never forget. He has given me a platform to stand on and achieve my dreams in the distilling industry. He would go above and beyond for anybody who is doing the exam, and he's changed the way I look and buy spirits. I think of taste rather than brand. And then he compares you to the Beatles and Def Leppard, but I won't go into that bit. But Nick has done that in the education side of the spirit industry. He has a new platform to balance out the qualification side of the business. Is that something? Obviously, teaching is very rewarding, and when you hear comments like that, I'm sure it's very satisfying and makes it all worthwhile. So
yeah, I think for myself, I think I say when I'm doing the course, I'm dyslexic myself.
Right. Okay.
Like studying was, I had to do so many classes at school to, grinds and stuff like that. So I've learned over my path to know how to make things easier for me to understand. And if it's easier for me to understand, I'm able to then provide that depth or that knowledge across to people in very simple terms. I never presume that you just get it. I will ask and try to make sure that you know it.
Yeah. Kevin is asking there, Kevin O'Connell is just asking what the link is. So it's spiritstraining.com. Yeah,
I did have it at the Irish Whiskey and Spirits Institute, and I kept spelling institute wrong. So I thought I would do the same. So
no, great.
Spiritstraining.com.
Great name to get. So spiritstraining.com if anybody's interested. What do you see? I mean, obviously it fulfills a requirement if people are taking the course. There's so much happening now in the spirits industry in Ireland, from poaching to vodkas to some rum down in the country as well, and of course obviously whiskey is the most dynamic of the whole lot. What was missing? What did you find people didn't know and needed to learn
about? I think really how fermentation I think is probably the best one really, and how different it can make such a difference to spirits, and how critical it is in the production process. Yeast and how yeast behaves. Obviously we don't go into huge biological detail, but just the simple terms of how characteristics develop and aromas and flavors that come into the spirit. And it's not just about the distillation.
Yeah.
It's those choices that are made in all those steps that are so important. So I think the fermentation is so overlooked, I think.
And if I was to ask you, what are the biggest misconceptions that people have, particularly about whiskey, and I suppose whiskey in particular, I'd be.
I think it's the biggest, and it's kind of a little pet hate of mine, is when it comes to whiskey, it's like the darker the better, the older the better. You know, that's when it comes to spirits, it's about the quality, and age statements is just basically how long something is spent in the wood. It's like, you know, if you're working on something and you're crafting something, you know, you could be working on the best thing in the world and you think it's the best thing in the world for 12, 20 years, and then you get out there and it's not. But because you put 20 you know, that's going to be that good. So, you know, the reality is it's about the quality, and that's ultimately what I believe. And, you know, I think people need to look at different spirits to appreciate that. You know, there's certain spirits, like when you look at, for instance, cognac, and I know you're a fan of cognac as well, you know, like BS and BX. So very, very different, and different people will like different age segments. But, you know, that conception, the darker, the better. And, you know, if you have some heavily caramelized spirits, you can really see that people would, that conception would be broken straight away.
Yeah. I mean, for people that are starting off and maybe even as a brand ambassador or working in a bar or starting to work in a distillery, is there a lack of knowledge out there?
I think there's a lot of knowledge, but it's just a fine tuning and refining, really. You know, there's terms that are used which are not clear enough. You know, sweet. You know, something that's sweet is very, very vague, because is it actually sugar in the spirit, or is it actually the aroma of something that is sweet?
Yeah.
And I think you might remember when we were doing the course, it was like, you know, pinch your nose. You know, taste, does it appear to be sweet now? And kind of the references with things like vanilla being very associated with things that are quite sweet in our culinary practices, but elsewhere in the world, vanilla is used completely else in their cooking. It's used more for more savory items. So if you put like an American bourbon in front of somebody, which is, you know, virgin oak cask, really, really lots of that vanilla character, to somebody in the West who's associated with sweet things, they're going to go, this is a sweet whiskey, whereas somebody over in the East might say it's quite savory. So just using terms that just make it that bit more easier internationally to translate, so it has a very unique vanilla character, or, you know, just refining it. So yeah,
I think Omar is there as well. Omar Fitzel, man behind That's Dram Good. He's just reaffirming that, you know, the course gives you that opportunity to try a variety of different spirits and help place where Irish whiskey sits. So lots of compliments. I know a lot of people have gone through your course, Nick, and really enjoyed it.
Yes.
But I mean, what's your ultimate aim with the courses? Are you going to continue them? Are you going to make them physically present, or what's the plan?
They were originally physically present as such. That was the nature of them. I think with it being online, it allows me to have a greater reach and be able to make it more accommodating for people as well. Particularly Ireland, you know, just as I said earlier. But, you know, the big thing is that I want to highlight spirits that aren't covered in WSET. Gene is just so interesting. And I recently did a tasting of Clarin, which are spirits from Haiti, and it just kind of opened up my mind and thought, what if we had a time machine, and what if we could go back and taste all this poutine that were being produced all around the country, and see all the quirky, you know, family traditions of chucking something in a fermentation process, or leaving the vats open, or, you know, this ambient fermentation. Yes, absolutely. So these things that would change it. So I think that's what's quite cool, and just being able to highlight that and talk about that to the world, and then also to talk more about Irish whiskey. And, you know, we have so much going on, but also to be agnostic. You know, I do not use my training platform as a platform for my own whiskey to, you know, to...
No, quite the opposite. I mean, what I was impressed with was, and what I did like, was that you were able to bring some brands that aren't very common onto the course and get people to have a chance to try those. So I think we've frozen Nick again.
Back.
Oh, he's back. Okay. Yeah, no, just the opportunity to try brands and I can get those brand ambassadors in on the course was great. So other than the course and offering those courses, which hopefully you'll continue to offer, and like for somebody that's done level 2, how big a jump is it to level 3?
Sorry, Serge.
Sorry, how big a jump is it from doing the level 2 to level 3? Oh, unfortunately,
to level 3. Yeah, no, I can hear you there. So the level 3 is a big jump enough. You know, from level 1 to level 2 is a jump, and then level 3 is again another jump. It's a lot more hours of study putting in, and that independent study is required to do well in the exam. And you have your theory, which is multiple choice, and then a written part, and then you have a blind tasting, which is not easy to do. Is to be able to recognize a number of different world spirits and be able to taste them and identify which ones are which.
Yeah. I think Juan is asking, sorry to ask, what is the course you recommend? Well, I think Juan has a reasonable knowledge of whiskey. Presumably start at 1 and finish at 3. Is that what you recommend? Do them all with you?
It comes down to your own knowledge, and I think it's good to do level 1 as a foundation. You know, if you feel you want to build on something and then progress up, you can't really just step straight to level 3. I wouldn't recommend that for anybody. So definitely level 2, and then you could go on to your level 3. But again, it's a big jump.
Yeah. Are there any other platforms then, Nick, you'd recommend in terms of rounding your knowledge? So if somebody wants to really get into the business, do they need to go and do the IBD exam? Or do the certificate, the International Brewing and Distilling courses, or how far?
Personal choice for a lot of people, I'm sure. You know, at the end of the day, what's your end goal? What do you want to do? And I guess there's so many courses out there that I could recommend or advise somebody to do, but it really is down to what you want to achieve at the end of it. But I think that we're lucky. We're in a day and an age that we can access so much knowledge. You know, we're talking remotely. You know, we can get information anywhere in the world right now.
Of all the spirits outside of whiskey, because I assume, and I think cognac is up there for you as well. Yeah. Beyond those two, what are the ones that one you like the most, and secondly, the ones that you find the most interesting?
Yeah, I think. Well, there's so much out there. I think I haven't discovered all of them. So let's put it that way.
Well,
so, what I have to date come across, which I think I could talk about this for a good while, to be honest. But to touch on it briefly, I think tasting Clarin, which is a type of rum as such, made from fermented sugarcane juice from Haiti, made by these kind of artisan distillers that are really small. That's fascinating. Cognac for the maturation and how they work with their coupe system and how they select their casks and what goes on to go for each age statement. And then things like Asian spirits, you know, sochu, baijiu, you know, these things are really interesting with solid state fermentation. You know, there's so much things. There's so much going on with different spirits, but I think they're all fascinating. It's like a favorite child. Some of them are naughty, but you know, some of them are obviously good, and the ones that you keep around, and the ones that are naughty go in the naughty corner. But anyway, that's
which are the ones that you think have the most unusual production processes?
I think it's the Asian spirits for me.
Really?
Well, it's in like the most unusual spirit production, because you're using in essence a fungus to do your your conversion of your starches to simple sugars, and where, you know, we would use malting to create the amylase and the enzyme in the barley, and that would then be used to trigger the conversion of starches into simple sugars in mash bills. So basically, the malting process, we'd use that, where they would use this fungus.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
Right. Yeah, and of course the traditions of some of those Asian spirits go back thousands of years. Yeah.
Like some of them involve like pig's blood and pits that are going back to 1600s.
Yeah, that's the largest glass of vodka I've had somebody drink on the show so far, Nick.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah. The nerves.
Yeah. Well, listen, I suppose you took that knowledge and you decided to venture out on your own and look at providing your own and creating your own whiskey. And I know this time, well, it was just before Christmas, or was it just before Christmas that you started, that you released this baby here?
Yeah, it was the 19th of, I think, December.
Yeah.
Memories around that.
So there's a bottle of it there. And I'm delighted to say that I do have a bottle of it here. And if anybody hasn't seen it, you know, there's not many of them around, I guess. Is there, Nick?
There was only 100 ever bottled.
Yeah.
It would. I guess the thing is, this was designed fully by myself. Like there was no branding agency. There was no, consultant brought in to taste the spirits. There was no, big money behind this. This was something that was very much a project of passion and love and pride of where I'm from.
Yeah.
And really wanting to put Limerick back on the map, and hence why there's a map on the tube itself, and that map is of a very old Georgian Limerick and in the 1800s. So yeah, it was all about trying to do something different. The liquid was sourced from the Great Northern Distillery, and it was pot still whiskey distilled in 2016, September, I believe, of 2016. So it was Young Spirit that was released, and it was designed to was a segmented release. And the reason for this was I had always wondered what would the character of the spirit be like at different times. And then as we went on time, and when I was doing the training and tastings, we would do a tasting of VS, VSOP, and XO, but in the cognacs. But the thing is, you could never know whether it was a blending choice or the cask or the fermentation, why those spirits tasted so different from each other. And I wanted to kind of remove all those elements and just focus on how a spirit evolves. And also this was in essence like a founding fathers. The book in the background, which I actually have here beside me, it's a ledger for all the individuals who purchased the bottle. Their name goes into it, and then one day when everything is being revived here in Limerick, their name is in this book, and their grandchildren potentially could open this up and see their name be part of it. So very much this was all to fund what's going on now. The barley that's being grown in Limerick, the bond that we're trying to get in place, the bonded warehouse, and trying to test this comment that Alfred Bernard made when he came to Limerick, that Limerick whiskey had a rapidly aging character to it. And that's something from my research is to do with the humidity. And Frank McCourt said that Limerick was the most pious city in Ireland, but it was actually because there were so many churches, because they were all trying to get out of the rain. And Limerick had a lot of rain and a very humid place. And it was funny because I was driving back from Dublin yesterday, and it was about half an hour outside Limerick, and you could just see that there was the clouds all forming in the rain. I said, "Welcome home." So, but this also makes it quite difficult for growing barley, which is a bit of a challenge. So it's.
I know that I know that you have a few projects on the go at the moment. But what was the reasoning why you wanted to get into release something? Obviously, you're a proud Limerick man, and Limerick doesn't have a distillery at the moment. So we have 33 distilleries in Ireland, 32 counties, and Limerick doesn't have one yet. No. Is that something that's on the cards? Would that be your ultimate ambition?
Ideally, like anything, this is a self-funded operation. This is not some big venture capitalist, coming in behind. I'm trying to keep control of what I'm doing, so I can do weird wacky stuff. And it's maybe not the most profitable to do it this way, but it is by far, from my understanding, the most interesting to do things that are a bit fun. But so the plan is first stage Limerick barley, which we've achieved, and the royal me. I mean, I worked with a local farmer, and we worked out, and funny enough, they were only down the road, literally. I could just walk there and go and visit the field, which was fantastic. And it was kind of close to a close friend of mine when I was growing up, so I knew the area very well. So we grew the barley there. That's the first step, and that's been harvested, and luckily we got that off the field.
Well, there we have a photo of your young one, Hector, sitting in the field supervising production, I presume. So is that the farm in Limerick?
Yeah,
just recently gone.
Yeah, literally, it's so close to the city that you can see Thomond Park parallel to the field, over in the distance, and in the back you have the Clare Hills. But to the left you have Carrigagunnel, and which is an old castle on a big mound and then you can see the race course down by Patrick's Well. So you have this lovely command and view of Limerick all from that field. So it's like slightly elevated, and it's on a slight slope as well, so that it was quite well drained, which is quite important for Limerick. So but it was really, really tough. The weather was not working with us at all this year, and it was complete risk whether it could be done, and it's up and it's been tested and it's all good. So it's going to be the green component of pot still whiskey that we're going to make. We're not going to malt this year. But next year we'll go and try to malt, because obviously. So
this will be the green component. This will be the unmalted component that goes into a pot still in the future, is it?
Correct. Yeah. So we're not going single farm, single origin for this first products being laid down. It's very much about being involved with Limerick, working with Limerick people, and building something for the future. So it's trying to capture that and scale that. So very, very small. It's in the grand scheme of farm production. Literally, we GPS coordinated our area of the field we planted, and then we planted. It's laureate barley, double row barley, and that's been. So
very good. I see you photoshopped out the rain there. It's not possible you could have weather that good in Limerick.
Oh, this is it. Like when I woke up that morning, I did put up my stories, and it was just, you could hear the birds singing, and it was a very damp morning. The ground was all wet. I really didn't think it was going to happen, but my mother had put the Child of Prague out, so I thought it had worked for all my sister's weddings. It was going to work for today, and luckily it did. It worked for today, and on Sunday we took it all off the field, and it's been great.
Yeah, and here's the book you mentioned. It's a fascinating book. I've seen. Don't think I've signed it yet.
No, not yet. But the official event I was planning to get everybody down.
Oh, that's right. Yes. So you were planning to have an official event where people came down and signed the book.
Exactly. Yeah. Once things calm down and we can all socially be not distant, but socially close, we can all be down and enjoy a drink and sign the book. And all those who purchase the bottle have first refusal for the next releases as well. So it's very much trying to you're part of a club, really. The price points, and that was what it was all about, was to fund the operations and the projects, but also to be part of this club, that you would be in essence like a founding member of this story that I'm trying to revive in Limerick. So very supported by people in Limerick and those outside Limerick as well. But it's been really great to see that support.
Yeah, I have to really commend you on the research that went into it, and actually the presentation. It's really, the detail is fantastic. Do you want to tell us about these tubs?
Yeah,
we're something familiar with people working in the Thomond distillery, and actually maybe you can tell us a little bit about the Thomond distillery itself, Nick, as well, for those of us that aren't aware of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was quite difficult to get information about it because it's quite fragmented, and I'm sure there's probably people out there who are way better historians than myself. I'm not a historian, but I should rephrase. People who are far better at researching than myself. But from what I found out, it was a significant site, and it took a lot of effort to find pictures of the distillery and to find even detailed geographical kind of ordnance survey maps of it. And luckily, there was a commissioned lieutenant in Phoenix Park in Dublin who did a detailed map of it. So you could see that there was malting houses. They had their own wharf. They had the stills. They were Miller stills from Dublin, and they were direct heat worm tub condensers. And they also had 70 people employed there, cooperages. They had loads going on there. The most ornate and beautiful garden as
Right.
well there. But interestingly enough, I knew about the distillery from a very young age because when I was growing up, a friend of mine and one of my teachers, like my teacher's child, daughter, went to school with me, and their house was the manager's house of the distillery. So
All right. Okay.
over there in the past, I'd heard about that this was, so it kind of was always sitting there in the background, knowing where it was and what was it about. But these tokens, I'm not too sure if people know the nickname for Limerick was also known as Pigtown. Limerick was, Denny's, Mara's, all of the big from Limerick, and Limerick was known for its ham and Shaw's and so on. These were all from Limerick, and the ham was, everybody was rearing pigs, and getting the grain to feed the pigs would have been a commodity that was valuable to the people in the city. So the people would have gone to the distillery. They would have actually done, I've got one of the tokens here, they would have paid at the office, received the token, and gone down to the brew house, and where they would have the spent grain, and then they would take the spent grain, and the person that they would ask, do you want 1 tub or 2 tubs? And then they look at the back of the token, and they'd see it's 1 tub or 2 tubs, and they would do it swap, and they'd get an exchange. So you have 2 tubs there, 1 tub there, yeah. So, and you can see Steen and Brown and Co. So you have the distillery was founded by John Brown and John Steen. So they came on later on, but I believe those are the Steens are connected with Jameson as well. So again, I'm not a historian, but from what I could see, there's quite a strong connection to the world of whiskey there. But it's really fascinating. But the Limerick ham itself, the reason why a lot of people eat ham for Christmas is because Queen Victoria was sent a Limerick ham, and it's fascinating. But as in, she was, she had so many children with Albert, and they all married into all the royal families of Europe. The desires of Russia and Romania were getting Limerick ham for Christmas. That's fascinating, and they were all being fed with grain from the distillery. So it's interesting to kind of see that kind of connection there. But the distillery's gone. We don't have a distillery. So
when did it close? When did it close, Nick?
Yeah, so it closed in 1919, but it was bought up by DCL, I believe, in 1902 or 1903. But it was pretty much like, you have to think about the time in Ireland, things were not looking good for industry really, and it wasn't, of course, it wasn't really viable. And the distillery was knocked in 1937. Yeah, 1937. And the O'Dwyer villas were built on top of it there. So there's very little of it remaining. But it was a 6-acre site. It was very, very, substantial.
Big. Yeah. I mean, the DCL, obviously, they came in, they bought quite a few distilleries in Ireland. They bought the Phoenix Park, the Dodder Park, was the one up in Watts as well, a number of others as well. And I suppose what they were trying to do was protect their Scottish industry at the time. Were there other distilleries in Limerick? I know there are 2 or 3 others. How many?
About 5 distilleries. Again, I have to double check now again, but it's around 5. There was O'Connell's, there was Robert Rhymes of Newtown Perry, there was John Square. There was a few, like Limerick was doing a lot, there's a lot happening there. And there was breweries as well. The Newgate Brewery across the way, there was the Thomond Brewery, there was, Gary Owen Brewery. So,
all right.
Loads. So a lot of history Limerick has, but it's somewhat forgotten.
Yeah, I've got Connor. So we'll come to this actually. I mean, there will be a version 2 of this then at some point, will there? Yeah,
like most likely it's 1 year since the first one was released. So it's not going to be out this year anyway. It's going to be with it. So the whole concept of this is, the first one is the control, the second one is the influence, and the final one is the result. So you're not really going to see too dramatic of a change in that 1 year. The bond that we plan to have in Limerick has been delayed just due to COVID. Just the social distancing hasn't helped site visits for getting bond approved. But It's something that I'm working on, and it will happen, but it's going to happen just a little later than planned. But the cask will then come down to Limerick, and then we can harness this humidity and see if the influence is going to be that dramatic from the River Shannon.
Yeah. So, I mean, you talked about the humidity, and obviously we see the kind of humidity influence that other whiskey producing nations like Taiwan, maybe Australia, other countries have in their production. What's the fundamental difference when you produce in a high humidity? I know it affects alcohol levels is one thing, but in more terms?
Well, exactly. You said there about alcohol. So alcohol decreases in humidity, and you have when you have a dry environment like in Scotland, Ireland, alcohol content is going down.
Yeah.
If you look at places that are really dry and there's no humidity, the ABV is going up. So water is being lost from the cask in those drier parts, and in the more damper parts, the alcohol is being lost. So if you think about ethanol and water are very different chemicals, and they also are different solutions. They're actually, different materials are going to be dissolved by them from the wood, and also the greater and lesser amounts of them are going to influence the form of esterification and so on. So there's, lots of things are happening, but putting in simple terms, you're going to get more of a softer character, and you're also going to get potentially characteristics of rancio better than you would do if you're getting from drier environments. You get more kind of oakier, heavier kind of character from places where it's that drier humidity. So that's why Ireland is very good for maturation. We do have a very constant, our summers are, well, they haven't been
relatively. They used to be.
Yeah, absolutely. But our winters aren't that cold in the grand scheme of things. You think about our childhood, growing up in Ireland, and it was very, very rare that we would ever get a snow day, would it? It's never dropped.
No.
Particularly, we never really got that much day off. So it's a bit rare. So everybody on the East Coast got more days off than us.
Well, up in Dublin, it's a different world, of course. But tell me, what are your plans then over the next? Any new releases? Any projects you're working on, whiskey-wise? Anything you can talk about?
Yeah, so working on something at the moment, kind of alluded to there with cognac. So going to do something with cognac, a single malt cognac release, and I'll provide more detail in that in time. And on something at the moment that still is in the works, so it's too early to say of what that's going to be, but something that will be quite interesting, quite quirky. So I think that'll be quite fun to see. But I've been really happy to talk about it closer to the time, but for now,
well, maybe we'll have you back on when you have your new releases out. And I mean, I know this was incredibly well received, and rightly so. It certainly put Limerick on the map, I think, in terms of whiskey, which you really have to be commended for, Nick. So well done on that. And I know you're doing this all on your own, and okay, you're getting the support of the distilleries, Great Northern in particular, but and the amount of work that you put in, I have to say, take my hat off to you and say, well done. I'm looking forward to the new stuff now as well. But if we were to visit Ireland in 5-10 years' time, how do you see the Irish whiskey landscape in that period?
I think it's going to see a lot more interesting stuff happening. I see a lot more direct heat happening.
Okay.
I think it's quite cool. When you have direct heat in the production process and you're not using steam coil, you're getting the Maillard reaction, and you're also, the yeast is going to it's just going to create more flavors and so forth. So basically, you're going to get more interesting spirits. And I think that the use of the condenser is quite cool, because you have slower distillation, and you also have spirits that is not going to be as sulfur is very good at copper is very good at neutralizing sulfur, whereas a worm tub condenser has less surface area space. So I see a lot of that coming onto the space, and definitely like Brendan up above and Rowan.
There's a couple I know that are doing direct heat at the moment, but that kind of lends itself more to the much smaller distilleries, obviously, because applying direct heat to big stills is probably not something that.
Yeah, especially when you're dealing with explosive gases, insects going everywhere.
Yeah.
But you look at cognac, they have limitations on the size of the still. You just have more stuff. So there's ways around it as well. It's not as efficient, it's not more as cost effective, but I think it's something that if I was to be excited about, I think that's what I'd be excited about, and about doing things that are a bit more interesting and a bit more different, because still shape and still design, there's a lot that's happening, but there's not dramatically different at the moment from what I can see. But with the use of direct heat and warm tube condensers, I think that's something. And even if you look at for the purpose of being like independent bottlers and blends, if you look at Scotland, they have that variation of spirits being produced. If we don't have those producers, these kind of quirky stuff, we're not going to have the variety of flavors to be able to do these interesting blends. So that's important.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously that was another question that had come in, and obviously you are an independent bottler.
Yeah.
And in Scotland, the independent bottlers have a huge influence on what's happening with Scotch. What do you see happening here? And are there any regulatory frameworks that need to change to be able to facilitate them? And what are the biggest challenges for an independent bottler?
I think the biggest challenge is, well, naturally there's regulation is needed for obvious reasons, but there's a one price tier structure for anybody entering the game, regardless if you're massive or if you're just tiny.
Yeah.
There is a special kind of setup in place for the breweries, for the microbreweries, but they're not there for micro distilleries. And that's important, really. Again,
is that a taxation thing, or is it just cost of getting in?
Taxation, more so taxation and how it is structured. But again, it's something that I wouldn't be massively knowledgeable about, but from what I've seen and what I've read in the past, and again, it's something that kind of I was going, wow, is that not available for distillers? But again, it's something I wouldn't be massively knowledgeable about, but it's something that I have seen. And then even just for my own licenses, when you're getting a license, it's the same for Irish distillers, or if it was me, or if it was Diageo or Pernod Ricard, or it's the same. That's the interesting thing. So I think that.
What's been the biggest challenge that you've had, other than the financial difficulty and obviously it's almost prohibitive to get into it if you're smaller, I suppose. But in terms of anything legislative, anything practical, any?
Well, I think it's more so just there's no go-to how to. It's kind of you have to discover it all and find out. And to be honest with you, people are so accommodating and so friendly in different companies that they have been very helpful, and they've really helped throughout all the process. That's what I think is a real strength of the Irish whiskey industry, that you can knock on the door and talk to anybody, from the big boys all the way to the people of a similar size to yourself. And we're not in a position where, like the other countries in the world, like the Japanese market, where nobody talks to each other and they're very competitive. The Irish is very helpful, very supportive, which I think is very important, because we have to maintain quality. We have to ensure that the industry grows and that there's no cowboys. And I think that's really what's needed. But from a kind of a process of just learning, it's like anything, you have to start slow and grow.
So the independent bottlers, what is it they can offer that the distilleries themselves can't?
I think it's innovation, and you see some more innovative stuff, coming out of the big distilleries now as well. But the risks that have to be taken to be noticed is most going to be done by the smaller guys. And I feel the big push for cask strength has been very much being led by the smaller companies, and I think that's something that's I'm quite interested and passionate about as well, because you get a lot more from a spirit that hasn't been diluted, because you're getting the full quality of it. And then it's up to the individual to decide whether they want to reduce the ABV. more enjoy it as it is. And I think that's quite something that you see quite a good bit. And then also the use of different casks, some weird and wonderful ones that are happening.
I was going to come on to that actually, and I was going to say, you've come across so many different spirits, obviously through the training, and so if there was one spirit that you were to pick to finish one of your whiskies in, and not a cognac, not a sherry, not a port, what would it be?
It's a good question. I think it's really, really interesting to ask that question now. Lots of things are running through my mind, and I would be interested in pisco potentially, but that you can have some pisco that is aged. Now, try and think of what other spirits. I quite like high ester characters, so spirits with high esters. So some things like Jamaican rum are quite cool. But again, it comes down to the distillery and the style they're producing. But there's so much out there really, and I guess the world is your oyster when it comes to variation, because we're in Ireland and we have the option. So I guess
I see Liam put in Buckfast. And actually, joking aside, I believe there is somebody working on a whiskey finished in a Buckfast cask, or some variation of that. So I have heard of that. So that'll be an interesting one. I can't imagine what it'll be like, but
somebody takes the balls to do it, and they're going to spend their money to do it. I'd say for them. If people don't take the risks, and I have to commend Louise with the battalion, doing mezcal and tequila casks. I think that was really unique and wonderful. So things like that, that people would not necessarily go, okay, that's a go-to, just things that are a bit different. And people do some things that are different. That's when innovation happens. Some things work, things don't work, but you won't know unless you do it.
That's the thing. I mean, different doesn't necessarily mean better, but it does open the pathway for discovering something that may or may not work. So if you don't try, you won't know. And I suppose the public will determine whether they like it or not. So, the more innovation, the more chance to make mistakes, but also the more chances to actually hit something good.
Definitely.
So, anything else, Nick? I mean, what else is lined up for the future? What do you see happening either in your production world or in the Irish whiskey sector that you're particularly excited about? And what are you looking forward to most when you get out of lockdown?
I think that's a few things to think of. So from my side, what I'm excited about, I guess, is really seeing when all the distilleries release their new make, what they're going to taste like. I think that's something that's going to be really, really cool. Naturally, we've been very lucky that there has been that support, and we have been able to, distilleries and independent bottlers have been able to purchase spirit to be able to do something in the meantime while we wait for our own stuff to come online. So I think that's really, really interesting to see what array or kind of variety was going to be available to us. Is going to be really, really exciting. I think what I'm excited about when I come out of lockdown, I guess, is getting to meet everybody that I have met during the courses as well, and visiting their distilleries and getting to go around the place, and also potentially traveling as well. There's certain spirits that I'm desperate to go over and see how they're made in person rather than purely in theory.
Any distilleries particularly hit your fancy what they're doing?
I said earlier, I think Killowen and Glendree. So those two. Obviously, there's more, and everybody's doing stuff that's interesting. Like I was at Rowan Co yesterday, and I was really fascinated by their double reflux. Bubble. So yes, the extra reflux they have in their stills. So by doing that, they're going to have different characteristics coming across due to the choice of the shape and style of the stills, as well as their production choices for the fermentation. So those things are really interesting for me. But yeah, just I guess the more I go around, the more I'll see, and the more I'm fascinated. I'm guaranteed that any distillery that I'll go to, I'll learn something new.
Well, that's the thing about all of them. There is something different in almost all of them anyway. So we look forward to those days of it being open. Somebody was asking, can we talk about pure water I'm not sure what the question is now.
Reverse osmosis of water, as in that you.
What is the percentage of organic land? So I think they're going to. So that's Freddie there asking that question.
What's pure?
What is the percentage of organic land that's used, I suppose, in the growth of the barley and stuff like that?
I guess I'm probably quoting my father-in-law, who's a farmer, and he said, organic is really great and it's very fantastic, but if your field is rained on by chemicals that have been absorbed by clouds, your field is not really organic anymore.
Okay.
But again, being organic, I commend it, and I think it's very good when people can be, and having biodiversity and being clever in what they plant and how they manage their land. But it's a tough thing to do. And, we didn't use any chemicals on the fields that we were doing, but it's not organic, because to be organic you need to be certified, and we have to plan for so many years idle.
Yeah. It's a big ask. It is a big ask. So I suppose one other question I wanted to ask you with them was the significance of different elements, like the significance of the cask, the significance of the soil, the significance of the grain, the significance of terroir. How important are they? What's the most significant impact, do you think, on the spirit?
I think it's, each of those individual ones can be dramatic, but it depends on, it's a very broad question, I guess, because, you could have, if you look at wood, you look at the density of the rings of the tree, where it came from in the world. Was it from cold wintered, hot summered location where it didn't have much growth, so really dense rings, or very easy growth climate where you have lots and lots of space between the rings. So there you huge influence on the flavor and how the character comes across. You have fermentation, the yeast. You got the, if you look at things like Jamaican rum, you cannot make certain styles of rum even if you were to build a distillery down the road further from it, because the ambient yeast that is required. And the same goes for things like the Asian spirits as well. These places have developed a biodiversity within their distillery, which is part of the style. I think it's hard to just kind of narrow anything down really to give an answer to that really in a kind of yes or no, kind of, or if this is the one key area. They're all as equally important, and it's how distillers and blenders and producers and brewers all make those choices that shape them. They're all sculptors really. They're all shaping the style of what they're creating.
Brilliant. Look, Nick, thank you very much. There's obviously exciting times ahead for you. I hope you may continue to offer the courses, because there's a lot of people inquiring about them. And if they did want to find out about the courses, what's the best way to do it, Nick?
If you go to spiritstraining.com, you read the courses, the dates that are available, and you can obviously make contact with myself. There's options as well for payment terms, so you can actually split the payment of the course over a number of months. So I know that.
Okay. I know you've very generously offered someone a free WSET1 course. Correct. So we'll be making that competition available online in the next couple of weeks. Yeah. So thank you very much for that. I think it's a fantastic introduction to getting into the spirits world, not just whiskey, but if you're going deeper down the whiskey road, it's a fantastic prize. So thank you very much for offering that, Nick. It's much appreciated. And we look forward to meeting you when everything kind of unfolds. And wish you the very best of luck in the future. And in particular, I'll probably be in touch with you when I have a few questions for the exam coming up, maybe a few cheat sheets or something. So
the answers already, they're just in the book.
If they're in my head, they're at the very, very back. So, but look,
anytime I can be of help, just let me know. I'm happy to.
Yeah. Look, you're a gentleman. Thank you very much. I think Limerick owes you a gratitude as well for what you're doing there. So I hope they're appreciative of what you're doing for Limerick. And best of luck in the future, and we'll keep in touch and see you soon.
Thank you very much, Serge.
Thanks for having me. Cheers. Thanks for coming on. Oh, that was great to have Nick on, a really nice guy, and he's always been helpful for any questions I've had. And I know many of his students have been saying the same thing. So it'd be great to support him in any way we can, and especially in these difficult times. So we have his link up, and that's it. So thank you very much for joining us on the show. I hope you enjoyed it. Do remember we have a competition running, as I said, for that Renaissance bottling too. And also, if you have enjoyed the show, if you'd like to sign up and register to our YouTube channel, or if you want to go to our website and register just to be able to get some of the magazine content available, you don't have to pay. You can register just as an ordinary subscriber. Doesn't cost you anything, and you get access to 2 articles every month. So there is that option as well. Looking forward to joining you next week, and we'll have another interesting guest. And look, there's an interesting couple of weeks coming up ahead, and look forward to speaking to you then. So thank you very much for joining us, everybody. Stay safe.